you'll see that interpretation button on the bottom panel. We have Spanish, French, and Portuguese interpretation available today. And if you're having any challenges with that, please just let us know in the chat. We have a really packed agenda today. In a minute, we'll begin with a brief reflection led by Craig Stewart, Director of Church Partnerships at World Vision International, to sort of ground us as we start our conversation. We have a panel of global leaders who will orient us to the connection between debt, climate, hunger, and nutrition, and as well as highlight the really unique and essential role that faith actors play in solutions. Then we'll have a second panel of local leaders and practitioners who will share their experiences and highlight scalable and innovative faith community-led solutions. Along the way, please be sharing questions in the chat. We'll have some time, hopefully, at the end, 15 minutes or so before closing. And then we'll close with a brief summary of what we talked about today and invite you to a series of possible actions you can take as you go from here before we send you off with a blessing. So just to set the stage, we know the challenges that we face are significant and increasingly sobering. 343 million people in 74 countries are facing acute hunger, according to the World Food Program. 45 million children suffer from wasting. 148 million children under 5 are affected by stunting, a condition that we know limits growth and development for life. Weather-related disasters are impacting millions of people on every continent. Likely most of us have seen and experienced impacts close to home, and including the impact on food systems and food security. The IMF and World Bank estimate that 60% of low-income countries are at or near the point of debt distress, where they cannot meet their repayment obligations, which obviously has an impact on communities' access to healthy, affordable, and nutritious food. So as churches and faith-based organizations, we're called to respond. And today, we really have the privilege of sharing stories, examples of hope and transformation, places where we can celebrate the ways that God is at work in the world. And so with that background in mind, I invite Craig to offer us a brief kind of reflection and grounding moment as we begin. Craig, over to you.
Thanks, Andrea, and welcome everybody. I'm sure that most of us have bounced onto this call from other calls and are moving on to others and have been spoken out all day. So instead of speaking for 4 minutes, we're going to use a practice from within some Christian traditions to a contemplative practice of silence and reflection. I'm using an image, and I'm going to bring up the image now quickly. It's an image that has been done for a coalition that a number of us are part of, the Prayer and Action Against Hunger Coalition. And this image was developed for this year's campaign. And so just as a starting point, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to be attentive to what you see, to take it in. As we consider nutrition and food and hunger and debt, have an opportunity to reflect on this image and to become present to today. Now, perhaps note a particular part of the image or part of the image that has drawn your attention. And for you, if you're a person of faith, how is God speaking to you? Or why has this particular portion drawn your attention? How might it speak to you about what our topic is today? what emotion might be evoked. And now perhaps allow a response to come up in response to that. Prayer, a word, what yearnings or desires come up as we think about this topic, evoked by this particular image. For me, I'm part of the Anglican tradition in the Christian church, and one part of the Eucharist or communion celebration talks about we who are many are one body because we all partake of the one bread. I know that's shared with many of us, and that has been evoked that as we gather today, we who are many, we who consider the lack of breaking of bread, the breaking of bread together, are one as we consider this. And so we hold that in front of God and in front of our colleagues as we continue with this morning's session, so this afternoon session, depending on where you are. So thank you, and I'm now delighted to hand over to Dinesh Suna, who's the World Council of Churches Executive for Water, Land, and Food, and we look forward to Dinesh's taking us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Craig, and my colleague, Andrea, and others. Well, so we have excellent, prominent speakers and experts in this area of food, and quite fittingly, as we are belatedly observing the World Hunger Day, which is, of course, we observed on 28th of May. There's nothing much to celebrate, as Andrea reminded us about various statistics. But we would also like to spend this particular session. There are different segments, but in the first segment, let us dive a bit deeper into the various challenges and opportunities that lies ahead of us, particularly as faith communities, which is predominantly, I think, today's audience in our midst. We have so many excellent speakers, but we only have limited time, and therefore I would urge our speakers to kindly stick to the allocated time, which would be in this segment. We have 4 speakers and just about 5 minutes per speaker. And we also, as reminded by Craig and Andrea, we are not only looking at hunger in isolation, but we are looking at it in the context of debt, in the context of climate change, and therefore we would be hearing different perspective on these. So to start with, we would have Mr. Massimo Pallottino, who is working for Caritas Italiana, and he's the coordinator or the head of the advocacy team. And so Massimo, while looking at the challenges and the opportunities ahead of us, could you draw some connections between debt and hunger, for example, and particularly relate to the current funding scenario in the current funding landscape that we are seeing, especially in 2025. So over to you, your next 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Dinesh, and good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Yes, that is a key issue in the world of today. And when we ask ourselves about that, we ask when that is too much. And the answer is that is too much when we are not able to repay the banks. But this is the point of view of the banks that need our money to be repaid back. That is too much when we are not able to cover our basic needs, subsistence needs and social needs, basis social needs. And in Italy, we see it very well in all countries. There are a lot of empirical demonstration that when you repay your debts, when you fall in poverty, one of the first things that you do is you eat less well. And also at the international level, is this the case? Now, that is finance, and it is something that is so much pervasive in today's world. But the point of that is very different from what we had in the year 2000, for example. By that time, that was mainly public debt. Now is private. The creditors are private entities, commercial banks, investment banks, hedge funds, a little bit difficult to understand exactly who owns what, and that makes everything very difficult. So that is something that is useful to look into a connection with many of the things that we see around and many of the big contradictions that we see in the world. Hunger is one of these first contradictions. We see that hunger, but also debt, is on the rise. But then we are very quickly giving a responsibility to most recent events like COVID-19 and or the war in Ukraine and so on and so forth. But we have to recognize that that was on the rise even before, and also hunger was on the rise even before. That tells us one thing. Hunger and debt are not something that happens in a specific moment of time, but they are both a kind of systemic issues. There is something broken in our system that needs to be adjusted. Now, the point is that we often try to face the issue of hunger by producing more, increasing the production. And we do it by entrusting big companies and a kind of agriculture that is very much industrialized to solve these problems. But we see that that does not solve a lot of problems. And we see that this kind of economy based on big industrialized production is actually kind of a boost for the debt, because countries are bound to export low price commodities that are produced by industrialized agricultural means, and they still need to produce something to feed themselves. So when we go to debt, that is somehow constraining our possibility to lead public policies. And it is actually public policies that we need. Public policies to face the big challenge in our time. And the big challenge in our time is climate change. We speak about adaptation and mitigation. Mostly in the global south, we need to speak about adaptation of the small farmers that see the environment around them to change so quickly. And for doing that, we need public policies, and public policies need to be funded. And if countries are stuck into a over-indebtedness situation, they do not have the resources. So to reduce the debt burden is this. Now, the problem is, what do we have to find? What do we have to fund and how? We have to fund big industrialized agriculture that is part of the problem itself. I think that we have to rely much more on communities, fund communities, but here we are in a kind of big contradiction. And the big contradiction is that public funding for agriculture and for fighting against hunger is decreasing from public sources everywhere, and we all rely more and more in private funding, foundations. But these foundations are somehow the same money that comes for the broken system we are faced with. So we are in a kind of giant conflict of interest. We entrust to the big players, the big lords of the food that play worldwide, to make their business and to provide the funding to improve agriculture. But that is not the way. We have to redirect funding much more towards communities, because it is only from the communities that a solution, a durable solution to the issues of hunger will come. I think my space is over, so thanks to you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So succinctly, within 5 minutes, you were able to summarize. And I think the key is you have outlined is influence public policy. I think that is one of the key focus to address debt and hunger, and also instead of funding big corporates, funding communities is what I think as faith communities we need to push for. Thank you so much, Massimo. Let me now turn to the next speaker in line, who comes from another the organization which is joined hands, that is the World Vision. And we have Dr. Dan Erwin, the Global Director for Health and Nutrition of World Vision International, who would now briefly tell us about the nutrition dialogue that, at least for the past couple of years, everyone is talking about in the context of the recently concluded Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris, and how this is going to be changing the malnutrition scenario. And particularly in the nutrition dialogue, what role does faith communities have and have played? Your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Dinesh. Thank you very much, and greetings, everybody. Great pleasure to talk to you today about the nutrition dialogues. This was an initiative founded last year by World Vision and the 4SD Foundation. And very simply, it created a platform upon which multiple stakeholders were invited to facilitate open-ended discussions in their communities about nutrition and what the relevance of nutrition was to them, and make recommendations on combating malnutrition, improving nutrition. Very successful in the course of last year. Over 400 dialogues were mobilized and reported, with 12,000 participants across 54 countries. We were very proud that 57% of the participants were women and girls, and 39% were represented by children and youth. And then within those numbers, 20 of the dialogues had been mobilized up until the end of last year by faith leaders and faith actors, with 243 participants in 9 countries. So we had a very interesting faith actor contribution at that point, and actually continuing on this year, there's continuing faith actor dialogues. I love this term, or this concept of reimagining development, which emerges so often in discussions today. Imagine a developmental investment which is highly contextualized, which is locally owned, which is accountable to the people most affected, in this case by malnutrition, and which is a participatory process. This is what the nutrition dialogues espouse and what they're about. The nutrition dialogues believe that solutions, developmental solutions, lie in community. And therefore, what we seek is increasing knowledge about nutrition, awareness, mobilization of actors, development of nutrition champions, high-level participatory approaches that are equitable, development of nutrition movement and momentum, and also concepts of mediation between critical stakeholders in the ecosystem. Our principles include focusing on development being human-centered, focusing on people's dignity and their inclusion, radical listening to communities, and focusing on demand creation and behavior. The faith actor dialogues that we synthesized into a global report based on those 20 dialogues as of the end of December honestly identified similar barriers and issues as the non-faith actor dialogues. So they tended to talk about or identify the same kinds of issues. And our speakers have been speaking about them already: debt issues and economics, climate, but a multitude of issues, education, health issues, water and sanitation, access to livelihood and agricultural inputs, violence, early child marriage, all of these things emerging organically in people's discussions about nutrition. Fascinating. But the faith actor dialogues also highlighted a number of spiritual and faith-related issues as well. And I think this is very important for our discussion today. Recommendations, if I distill down some recommendations for the faith community in relation to the dialogue work and outcomes, they might be firstly to focus on raising awareness in congregations of malnutrition issues and increasing the prioritization of these issues. Secondly, integrating nutrition interventions into faith actor investments. That might be education within congregations. That might be where faith institutions are doing food security work, increasing nutrition awareness and education there. Thirdly, contributing to the mobilization of communities around the nutrition issues. And fourthly, assembling faith and interfaith networks to aggressively engage policy needs. And the final thing I would say, just to wrap up, is that it is actually a very, very important contribution from the faith sector to highlight that food security and nutrition are a moral responsibility, and that our report concluded by saying that food security is a matter of faith, justice, and compassion. These are critical elements in the fight against malnutrition, and faith actors play a critical role in that sense. Thank you, Dinesh.
Thank you so much. Thanks for also keeping to the time, and very powerful impressions there. 12,000 participants, over 400 plus nutrition dialogues. But I think as most faith communities here, even though 20 nutrition dialogues led by faith communities is a significant contribution, but I'm pretty sure we could definitely do much more. Thank you for World Vision for providing the lead. And I'm throwing a challenge to everyone here that we must scale up. That's the language we're talking about. And this is why we engage, because this is a moral responsibility. It's a moral imperative. Thank you so much, Dan, for challenging us. Friends, the next speaker is not joining us live because she's engaged at another event right now happening parallel right here in Geneva. The next speaker is Dr. Ana Maria Suarez Franco, who is the Secretary General of FIAN International. That's the Food First Information and Action Network. And she's based here, right here in Geneva. I would put in more information in the chat about her introduction. She has recorded a video. Allow me to share the video. And unfortunately, we will not be able to watch it fully because it's slightly longer. So I will play only partially. Bear with me.
Hello, my name is Ana Maria Suarez Franco, and I am the Secretary General of FIAN International, newly elected. I want to thank the World Council of Churches for inviting me to speak today. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you, but I hope that the words that I will let in this video is helpful to your discussions. Talking about the nexus between water, land, and food, it's very important to highlight that in our longer than 39 years of work at FIAN, we have seen how the reality of the life of the people, especially in the rural areas, is complex and includes this nexus in a very clear way, but also the interdependence between us, the human beings, and nature. And unfortunately, these human rights connected to land, connected to food, and connected to water are constantly abused and violated through displacement, through the land grabbing caused by urbanization and extractive industries, including not only in mining, but also in the agro-industrial food system. The lack of water for agriculture, the pollution of water, the degradation of land, and also the lack of land for rural communities are very connected to the concentration of power by corporations, and it's causing hunger and malnutrition, which are violations of the right to food, but also contributing to conflicts, displacement, forced migration, and of course, increasing inequality. In this sense, we at FIAN consider that for the realization of the right to food, but also the connects rights as the right to water, the right to clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, the right to health, the right to work, and others, it is needed that first we defend these rights regarding water, land, and agriculture, but it's also very relevant to ensure that there are public policies that support the solutions. And today I want to refer to the solution of agrarian reforms, which is of course not only on the land, but is on the territories, and includes as one of the main goals the redistribution of power to ensure that we have more equal societies and that everyone can realize its right to food, but also food sovereignty. Agrarian reforms today have to be updated. It's not only about redistributing land and ensuring rural development, but it's very relevant that they tackle the issues that are discussed in the financing for development, including all the structures of power in the financialization, but also fiscal issues like how it should be the taxes for big landowners, and issues of debt and how debt impedes that states can cover the policies or finance the policies that are needed for agrarian reform, but also for rural services for the affected communities and traditionally marginalized groups. And in this sense, we think that it's very important also because we have to rethink agrarian reform to respond to the triple planetary crisis, which are not only the climate change, which is of course reducing the access of different rural communities and indigenous peoples to land, but also the destruction of biodiversity and the contamination or pollution of our nature. Fortunately, legal frameworks have advanced very well, also due to the work of the churches, of civil society, and we can see how in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, but also in the Right to Food Guidelines, in the voluntary guidelines on land tenure that have been adopted by the Committee on Food Security, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, complemented by the UN Declaration on the Human Rights of peasants and other people working on rural areas. All those, this nexus between water, land, food, and in general nature is very clear, and also clear guidance on which are the state's obligations is given there. I would also like to come now to a question that Dinesh posed to me, which is regarding important moments for this work on the topic. Maybe Dinesh can explain to you. I just want to highlight that also the CFS will analyze and share views on the last report of the high-level panel of experts on building resilience in food security. And I think also very relevant is that the CFS will discuss how to implement and improve the use of the framework for action on food security in protracted crisis, which is very, very pertinent to the wars, occupations, and conflicts of our days. I hope that you have an excellent conference, and I am sorry not to be there, but I will follow up with Dinesh. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was Dr. Ana Maria Suarez Franco, Secretary General, FIAN International, and I forgot to mention you that the question we asked her was, what is the nexus between land, water, and food? And we also asked her some key advocacy moments where she highlighted the CFS 53 that will happen in October 20th to 24th in Rome, where many of us may be present as well. And I will put in the chat some of the key moments that she asked us to share with you. Today, they're also releasing a report on land grabbing and its connection with food. All those links we'll put in the chat. Friends, now let me move on to our next speaker. And that is Dr. Arif Hussain. It's a very long list of his introduction. I'll put it in the chat so that he has more time to talk. And we were basically asking him again a similar question because he comes from the World Food Program, and therefore it is important to highlight some of the key advocacy moments that you would rather want the faith communities to get engaged in the area of hunger and malnutrition. Also, maybe what's your recommendations around a comprehensive faith leaders statement in the upcoming World Food Day events, including the CFS. So, sir, over to you for the next 5-6 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. Hello, everybody. I'm really honored to be here. I think we are talking inside with people who think the same, who believe the same when it comes to big issues like hunger. I think Andre already did half of my job by giving all of those numbers out. But let me tell you that, if sitting in 21st century, half a quarter later, people, men, women, and children, if they are dying and if they are starving, there is something seriously wrong. That's the bottom line. That's our problem statement. And the sad part is that we also know the solutions. So what is missing? In my humble view, it's not an issue of lack of food. We have plenty to feed everybody and then some. I mean, we waste 30% of our food. So how come we cannot feed everybody? So if it's not food, then what is it? In my head, it is a lack of political will and frankly, moral courage to do the right thing. This is where faith-based communities have the strongest in. We are in a moral crisis. That's it. And we need to do something. We need to treat hunger as an injustice, which must end, and it must end now. Why do I say that? Because faith-based communities, we feed people. We comfort people in suffering. We work in war zones, in slums, during droughts, during disasters. Communities trust faith-based organizations, and we reach people where governments and our donors are often not able to reach. But just remember that we are not only service providers, we are a moral voice. And we must speak out when we see the wrong. What are the places where we can speak out this year? Just give you 4. We have the G7 summit coming in June. We should call on the leaders to fund food aid, to fund resilience, to help the most needy around the world. We have the General Assembly in September. We need to push for real global action. Treat this as a global problem, which has results at the regional, national, and local levels. Then we have the World Food Day, which is October 16th. We need to unite as faiths and speak with one voice. And then finally, we have the COP30 in November, where we need to demand action on climate crisis, which is fueling much of this hunger. Now, coming to so what should be our message? How should we be able to do this, right? And I believe the faith leaders, they need to issue something like a joint statement where hunger is, seen as a moral failure, not just as a development issue. What we should ask of governments that they should protect emergency food aid now. They should invest in climate smart resilient food systems. And above all, they should focus on the nutrition of mothers and children. And faith-based communities have the ability and should be committed and have the commitment to speak out boldly. Support local solutions. We cannot solve these problems from afar. We need to support local solutions. And we should hold our leaders accountable. But also remember that we need each other. This problem is so big that not one single entity cannot do it alone. We need governments, we need multilateral partners, and we need faith actors working together. I mean, in a way, we can say that we need a global interfaith compact on hunger to drive both unity and action. Because remember, resilience is not just about infrastructure. It starts with food, it starts with dignity, and above all, hope. So just to end, let me be very clear. What we do, feeding the hungry, is sacred work. And ending hunger is in fact peace building. So this is the time to act and act now. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arif. Very powerful messages there. Hunger is a moral failure, moral crisis, quite rightly so, and ending hunger builds peace. And I think some of those key advocacy moments that you have alluded to, G7, the COP30, the upcoming World Food Day, CFS, etc., and the Global Interfaith Compact or an alliance is a good challenge that you have thrown at us. We'll definitely look into it. Thank you so much. Friends, in the interest of time, I would not be able to summarize the brilliant points, but we are taking the notes and we will share a report with all of you. And without further ado, having thanked all the panelists, the 4 panelists that have spoken today, I would now hand it back to my colleague, Andrea, for the next segment. Over to you, Andrea.
Thanks so much. What a powerful series of interventions. Thank you. Thank you all so much. We want to take a minute and just do a bit of reflection, a little bit of interaction on that first panel. I'm going to drop the Menti. Oh, Ariel already is ahead of me. He dropped the Mentimeter link for a poll. There's just there's just 2 questions that we're going to go through today. The first is, what words, phrases, or ideas really stood out for you from that opening panel? Let's take a minute. Should start to see as people respond. Dignity, hope, responsibility, moral crisis, moral obligation. Great. Great. Communities, compassion, dignity again. Ending hunger is peace. Yes. Yes. See in the chat, we have a couple: land reform, feeding the hungry is sacred work. Food security is moral justice. The idea of an interfaith compact, more than service provision. Local community, local solutions. Act now. Yeah. Resilience. Responsibility is growing in the center. Responsibility and moral crisis and hope. Nice set of words. Okay, give just another minute and then we'll go to the next question. See, investing in community-rooted solutions, signs of love. I see love, hope, charity, response to the moral crisis, and the responsibility of all, not just the leaders. Great, great. Okay, Ariel, can you go to the next slide? Okay, we just want to get an idea as we move into a session coming next, really focused on locally led solutions and what's happening. What is your local faith community or faith-based organization, or even you personally, how are you responding to address the hunger, nutrition, and climate crises? We have a few different options. You can choose up to 3. Great, see some things coming in. It's an encouragement to see the range of work that we know we're doing across this group. Yeah. Give a minute or so. We see prayer leading the way. Prayer as the foundation for a wide range of actions. We see advocacy, mobilizing the community, nutrition programming or education. Couple more minutes. Great. Okay, still have another minute to respond if you haven't had a chance yet. Okay. Really great to see. I think it's encouraging to see prayer, the way we're mobilizing communities for advocacy, and direct advocacy with governments, kind of leading in terms of numbers. Also the nutrition programming and sharing meals, as well as more of the sustainable agriculture, reforestation, then a couple others, which I'm curious about. Great. Thank you so much for taking a minute on that. We'll transition, but thank you. I now am going to introduce to you Masamba Mubanga from Caritas Internationalis, where she leads senior advocacy leader focused on the climate and food security. So she's going to lead us through the panel, really focusing on locally led solutions. So without further ado, over to you, Masamba.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Are you able to hear me? Perfectly well. Okay. Thank you so much. So for the next session, we have about 25 minutes. And maybe just to briefly introduce the topic again. So this session is going to focus on faith community-led solutions to end hunger and malnutrition. And just also to give a brief purpose of the session, is really more to highlight innovative, locally led and faith-based approaches that can inspire broader action. And so in terms of the flow of the session, we have a total of 6 speakers who are going to speak in 3 different groups, with each session having about 7 minutes. And so I'll just maybe remind the speakers to please stick to time. And this is now going to transition into the Q&A session, which will be handled later by Andrea. And so in terms of the speakers, the first and last speaker are going to do joint presentation. So then I'll now quickly go to introduce the speakers. So for the first session, we are privileged to have a presentation from World Vision Rwanda and Caritas Rwanda, who've done some collaboration around the topic at hand. And so the speakers are Raphael Mushumba, and Development Program Manager at World Vision Rwanda, and also Father Augustine Nzambumani of Caritas Rwanda. The floor is yours, Raphael and Father Augustine.
Yes, good afternoon.
We can hear you, Raphael.
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly well.
Oh, good afternoon. Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to allow me to talk about our partnership with the Caritas Rwanda in the nutrition perspective. We have some presentation which I would like to share in a few minutes. If you allow me to, can I share it with you for just 2-3 minutes? Thank you. Share. Okay. So I think we are together. I would like to talk about first about this partnership. Actually, World Vision partner with the Caritas Rwanda. And the reason why we have chosen Caritas Rwanda is because with the experience in PDHAT, the experience in community mobilization, we thought that it's good to partner with the Caritas Rwanda for their experience. And our motto in the partnership, what we do, we understood what we call unity among churches. That is why here in Rwanda, World Vision has interested those different churches to unite so that wherever we are bringing up a kind of fighting against malnutrition, fighting poverty, and the other related interventions, those churches that we believe they are key implementers, we bring them together so that they can contribute into well-being of the population. That is how Caritas Rwanda, through Catholic Church, Jimba Diocese, supervise over 62 churches who are operating in northern province in different interventions. So when we go to nutrition dialogue, I'm going to speak in like 2 minutes so that Father Augustine will have speak about it. When you talk about nutrition dialogue here, we've got this experience in comparison with the other approaches that we have. when we saw Caritas Rwanda is using this model, we found it is very helpful and bringing up a strong contribution to the community, because it brings the awareness, it brings teaching to the community, how to prepare balanced diet, how to teach the communities in different levels through discussions and teachings in the communities from different stakeholders. We see that it can easily reach to the objective of the entire malnutrition approaches that we use here. That's why one of the objectives is to increase awareness among the nutrition, empower communities to take action, and improve nutrition outcomes, particularly among women, girl, adolescents, and children. So the other objective is to increase awareness about the importance of good nutrition, individual and community health, and also various factors. And lastly is to engage the whole community. When I talk about whole community, I talk about different stakeholders, including leaders and the other relevant stakeholders, NGO, churches. So here we have a situation, maybe may not go through, but here in Rwanda, we are at 33% of the stunting and malnutrition, which we are using our level-based to fight against it so that we can reduce it at really a meaningful result. So I think with the partnership we had with the Caritas Rwanda, that Father Augustine will talk about, we have seen a strong impact where we have used this approach, where I would like to invite Father Augustine to talk about it and share with us about PDHAT contribution to the community of the Eastern Province. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the team. Thank you for inviting us. I think you are hearing me. All right. Okay, thank you. So I am Father Augustine, the director of Caritas Byumba, and also a member of Caritas Rwanda. We are one, and we are partner with the World Vision. As Mushumba has said, after seeing that we have a big problem of malnutrition in our region, the church and all churches, faith-based organization, we have taken action to see how we can reduce the malnutrition. The problem was lack of knowledge about nutrition of our population and lack of diversified diet consumption, and also poverty, hunger, and also poor knowledge about how to prepare the diversified diet, and the poor hygiene, and the lack of culture of caring children. That is a big problem in our community in Rwanda. And also the churches, church leaders, and our lays are involved in the solution of the problem in the community. We are community-based, we are in the community. We have many activities in the community. We have hospitals, we have health centers, and also our structures arrive to the community, to the family, so that in partnership with World Vision, we took action to resolve the problem of malnutrition in the community, so that we involve the church leaders, the community leaders, and also the NGOs to see how together we can handle the problem. So one of the techniques we are using in Rwanda is PDHAT. PDHAT, it is normally we use the technique of screening, seeing how malnutrition, stunting, and other nutrition problem and the community, as Mushumba has shown, we are now at 30% of malnutrition or stunting in our community. After screening, we use what we have in the community to see to build the capacity of our community, our families, in knowledge, and increase their capacity of having food, so they can bring together what they have and prepare the food in the community, so that they can feed their children. And after 12 days, we can do another screening, see if there is improvement. After seeing that, we can see the improvement, and we do another screening, seeing the improvement. After, we can continue following them, seeing if they are improved or staying at the same stage. So this is the PDHAT. It is a quick recovery, screening, quick recovery, follow-up, and monitoring. And also after that, we engage the community engagement, to the awareness, to do what they can do in the community. The church leaders, the families, the local leaders, security organs, they are all aware to see how they can resolve the problem. We see together in the community, we took time to discuss about malnutrition, to discuss about what we have in the community, and how they can help us to resolve the problem of malnutrition. So actually, we are now contributing to reduce malnutrition in the community, and we are now actually stunting. It is decreasing. It is decreasing, and the underweight also decreasing, because the community is engaged. It is why I can advise that if you engage the community, we can resolve the problems of our community. So the problem we have actually is to have the community engaged, and also having capacity of resolving their own problems, and do the coordination, strong coordination, to help the people to resolve their problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Father Augustine and Raphael, for that great presentation. I think it's worth appreciating, and the fact that I think your presentation a concrete example of collaborative actions to tackle hunger, and also the unique contribution that faith organizations can do in terms of mobilizing the community, and also the public engagements that you're doing. And I think also the PDH approach that you are implementing is something that is really exciting, and also brings on a lot of lessons in terms of how you're tackling hunger in Rwanda. So thank you so much. Before I now move to our next presenter, maybe just to invite the participants, in case you have any questions, to please share reflections in the chat box. And then now I'll move to the next presenter, and also just remind the panelists to maybe stick to time. And so our next presenter is Natalia Nwetu, who is the Faith and Development Manager under World Vision Indonesia. Welcome, Natalia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from Indonesia to all of my brothers and sisters in faith here. My name is Natalia Nunuhitu, and I serve as the Faith and Development Lead for World Vision Indonesia, known locally as Wahana Visi Indonesia. Thank you again for the opportunity for sharing today. And I believe we are gathered here today across borders and denominations with one shared purpose to respond to the suffering caused by hunger and malnutrition through the power of faith and strength of our community. So let me start with the pastor Septemi Lakawa's statement at the WOPA and Nutrition Dialogue event that we conducted in Indonesia I think a couple months ago. She said that we are hungry, but we have choices because we have food. in the kingdom of God, no one should go hungry. Hunger is the antithesis of the kingdom of God. At the same time, it's also an opportunity. Hunger is a reality that gives us the opportunity to encounter God directly, especially for those who are hungry. And we gathered more than 100 faith leaders from across denomination in Indonesia, both online and face-to-face meetings, to discuss and pray in the weekend of prayer against hunger integrated with the nutrition dialogue. All of the stories we captured show the wonderful works of God through his people, especially the faith leaders in impacting many lives, especially children. So let me share the stories, not from a textbook, but this is from the field. In a village where WVI works, there started with a faith leader that turned barren land behind his home into a simple garden. His small act inspired others, and soon the whole community began eating better because they follow his example. With shared learning, they expanded into hydroponics and livestock, integrated the produce into local health programs, and involved schools and clinics. The schools and the clinics adopted this model, so they developed a new program for the children. And in the community, men built infrastructure and women lead daily care. The families started form saving groups. What started as one person planting a seed grew. Now they are become a community-wide movement for health, dignity, and transformation. And that's just one story. Elsewhere, food insecurity hang over a village like a shadow. You know, children were malnourished, parents felt helpless until faith leaders decided to step into the fields in Western Indonesia. They partnered with local authorities and established community gardens. They dug fish ponds, and now fresh vegetables and animal protein are part of their daily meals. School attendance has improved because no children are sick anymore. Families once on the brink of poverty now have roofs over their heads and food on their plates. In another place, an read resources poor area in eastern Indonesia, faith communities dare to dream of sustainability. We can say that because women were trained to process cassava, bananas, and other local crops into nutritious food. Children learn to plant, care for, and harvest the crops. Their hands become familiar with the soil and their hearts with the truth that they also could be providers and protectors. This is not just a project for us, it is a living parable where faith, stewardship, and love for others meet urgent needs for food and dignity. So why are faith-led initiatives like this so effective? Because faith leaders carry more than a title. We can see that they carry trust. Faith leaders are deeply trusted figures rooted in the community life, present in both sacred spaces and also everyday moments. Their consistent presence and service inspire action and belief within communities. And stories like the 5 loaves and 2 fish in the Bible remind us that shared resources can lead to abundance, an idea still alive in many faith traditions. Existing religious gatherings and networks such as women ministry, Bible camp, or youth meetings, it's not just a space, a formal space, but it becomes a platform for lasting change. To expand this impact, we must begin by respecting and building upon local wisdom, traditional practices, and the cultural significance of the land. The second important thing that I want to share is about how important of partnership and collaboration. I can say that through this long journey of experiences, partnership, and collaboration are the keys. Where churches, mosques, schools, government, and health workers unite, transformation is not only possible, but it becomes inevitable. And when faith leaders are equipped with theology and practical training in agriculture, nutrition, and planning, they become more than preachers. They become cultivators of change. The third is about demonstration. Through our experiences, demonstration is powerful. Change often begins with people see real results. So faith communities lead by example, sharing stories of impact to inspire others. We can come to them, we can come to community, and we can say, look at what God has done through our hands, and others will follow. Children and youth are also engaged, learning to grow food, find purpose through child-friendly and spiritual nurturing spaces is important moment for us and also for them. Faith leaders play a vital role not only in the fields but also in the policy spaces, using their moral authority to declare that hunger is a spiritual crisis. It's not just a social issue. By bridging the gap between communities and government, they advocate with compassion and credibility. Together, we listen to the community, we see the suffering, we know the names and the faces behind the data. This work is not done alone. We are not alone. Faith communities collaborate with schools, health centers, and local leaders, mobilizing resources and creating sustainable, eco-friendly solutions to fight hunger and nourish both people and in rural and also urban areas. And whenever I go, I see this truth. When we bring together spiritual, technical, and social resources, when we align our prayers with our hands, transformation happens. Like what happened in East Nusa Tenggara, where fillet stunting rates dropped and child well-being increased through the initiative of a pastor who had experienced reformation himself. He mobilized his congregation to start a women's school, advocate for toilets for every household, utilize local food resources for community economic development, and create space for children to express their creativity. And you know what? Today, the church where he serves has become a learning hub for many partners who want to become child and woman-friendly churches by leveraging their local assets. This is a powerful message, accompanies the steps for everyone. We are not alone. This is the reason why we have initiated a national local network composed of many faith leaders serving both at the grassroots and also within the governments to share good practices and encourage one another in working toward a hunger-free world. Because we don't want to do by ourselves alone. We don't want anyone to feel like they are really do it by themselves, but we want to develop network so we can do it together. So we believe that we are part of a global body that believers through our service. We are feeding both body and soul. We are showing seeds of justice, and the harvest will be abundant. And let me end this sharing with encouragement. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we don't give up. Thank you. Over to you, Musamba.
Thank you so much, Natalia, and thank you so much for that reminder at the end. I think it's very timely. And really, thank you so much also for sharing the community stories and also the experiences from the work that you're doing on the ground. I think that's something that is really appreciated, and also the role of women that you've actually pointed out, and also the aspect to do in terms of appreciating the role of culture and spiritual leadership in shifting mindsets. Thank you so much. I will now move on to the last set of the presentations. So this is meant to be done jointly with our colleagues from the World Council of Churches. So we're privileged to have Atina Pelota, who is the Director for the Climate Justice Commission for WCC, and Solenye Jester, who's the Managing Editor under the Living Plant Monitor and also under WCC. So I'll first give the floor to Athena.
Thank you so much, and also thank you to our previous speakers for really their very powerful sharing. And I hope to add a few more stories. Last year, I had the privilege of visiting Limuru, which is a few hours away from Nairobi. I was there because the World Council of Churches was convening a workshop on restoring the land, protecting the climate. And so this workshop brought together faith leaders, climate advocates, church practitioners, and experts in agriculture and forestry. And the idea was to explore how churches can spearhead sustainable land restoration and climate resilience efforts. And so we heard a lot about community-based and faith-rooted solutions to the urgent crisis that we have been speaking about over the past hour, the climate breakdown, indebtedness, and hunger. One highlight of the workshop was a visit to a farmer-managed natural regeneration, or FMNR. You might have heard of it, FMNR for short. So this was an FMNR site in Nakuru. We met with some local farmers, and particularly we met with Sally, who, with the support of her church and with faith-based organizations, she began to, adopt FMNR techniques in her small plot of land. Now, the benefits were not immediate. Faith was required because the benefits were not immediate. But soon enough, her farm began to flourish. And we walked around her farm. It was a farm that was thriving with indigenous trees that are, of course, good for the climate. It was planted with a wide range of vegetables. There was livestock, chickens, pigs, all of those animals running around. And she said that the income that she was now deriving from her relatively tiny plot of land was now allowing her to sustain her family. She said that she was able to pull her family out of debt, that she is now able to provide education for her son. We also met her son, who lives with a disability. The workshop also showcased other examples, such as the Ethiopian Orthodox Church's conservation efforts. It's around comprising 35,000 monasteries, which are endowed with forests ranging from 1 to 19,000 hectares, so around 400,000 hectares in total. And these forests have, since time immemorial, been managed and protected by monasteries, by nunneries, as well as the communities who are residing in or around the churches. And these forests, they're not just a beautiful and sacred space. They literally are, oasis in a quite arid environment. But it's more than this beautiful forest. These forests sequester carbon. They are a source of food for the community. Fruit trees grow there. They house beehives. And as the forests nourish the land and keep the soil in and around the area healthy and fertile, communities are also able to, really plant vegetables and other crops in and around the forest. And so communities are being fed. I don't have a lot of time, so I will, I think, start to conclude to give space for my other colleague. The common thread in all of these stories is the role of faith and the role of churches. By integrating care for the land and all creation into our faith and into our actions, people of faith can respond to the climate emergency, to the hunger crisis, in ways that really promote lasting change, in ways that uphold the dignity of life. And we have heard already, examples of how churches, in the rural sectors can be hubs for organic farming, how churches, for instance, in the cities can become, hubs for community gardening. Our previous speakers have also linked hunger, debt, and climate change in one system. All of these are cracks in a broken economic system. And churches also have a critical role to play in advocacy. Churches bring the moral voice that can, push for policy changes in agricultural policy, in climate policy, but also in debt frameworks. And so churches are also quite active in national and international policy-making venues. And we've heard of some of these venues already being spoken about, the Committee on Food Security, the climate COPs or the climate conferences, but also, and very importantly, the Financing for Development conference that is actually coming up. And this is critical to ensure that climate resilient approaches are embraced by communities and entire countries in national adaptation plans, for instance. But it's also really critical in terms of mobilizing the resources as well as protecting the public spending so that it does not all go to, say, repaying debt, but goes to addressing hunger, goes to investing in a more climate responsive and ecological community-based initiatives. And along these lines, churches, for instance, are spearheading campaigns such as the Zacchaeus tax campaign, which is addressing tax justice, as well as a Turn Debt into Hope campaign, which is calling for the cancellation of unjust and illegitimate debts. Now, we have heard all these stories. It's important to, to collect and share these stories in order to replicate and build the networks around them. And we are doing so through a relatively new WCC publication called the Living Planet Monitor. And I will now ask my colleague Asha to share very briefly about the Living Planet Monitor.
Thank you, Tina. If somebody, Dinesh, could you please share the slides? All right, sorry. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and afternoon, evening, to depending on where you're joining from. My name is Asta Joshi. I'm a fellow with the World Council of Churches. I'm presenting on behalf of my colleague, Solane Jester, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us today. The Living Planet Monitor is like a well-researched publication which addresses the interconnection between land, water, food, and climate justice with a special focus on the role of churches and faith-based initiatives. Next slide. Could you turn to the next slide, please? You just need to scroll up. It's a PDF. Sorry. So, why do we need this project? The main, so why is the Living Planet Monitor so important? Because it was urgent. Vital information is scattered. It's often technical and not easily accessible, especially in countries where online data is very sparse. And there's also very less visibility of how churches and faith communities are actively responding to these challenges, even though in some cases they're the only actors offering support to their communities. So the Living Planet Monitor sort of has the potential to inspire dialogue and action building just and sustainable communities. In addition, it represents as a crucial tool in monitoring and responding to these challenges with faith-based solutions where bridging stories, best practices, analysis, and also connecting the dots for a sustainable future. The next slide, the next page. So the goal is to build like a global network of monitors, ideally one person from each. So ideally like a minimum of 3 in sub-regions, also in each sub-regions, like 3 sub-regions in each continent. And then also we compile existing secondary data from trusted sources like the FAO, WHO, World Bank, UNICEF, and more. And then we also have these 3 indicators: food, water, and land, with the other smaller contextual information. So the main indicators, we also have like sub indicators under each. For example, for for the food, we look at the presence of food insecurity, like how many people or households are globally going hungry. We also assess affordability and access, food cost, how much people earn, how much of their income is spent on food. Diversity and nutrition is also tracked, from calorie intake, dietary variety to malnutrition, obesity trends. And then we compare basic income versus cost of food, such as like minimum wages versus the price of basic food basket. Finally, we also examine food distribution system levels of food subsidies, what's being provided to whom, under what condition. Under water resource, we assess per capita consumption and fresh water availability, percentage of people with access to safe drinking water, sanitation. We also look at water stress, like droughts, availability for agriculture, whether water services are public or privatized, and then infrastructure investments and maintenance are also key concerns here. In terms of land use, we look at the indicators on who owns the land, with specific focus on women ownership and how much land is forces cultivated or degraded. And we ask the question about, are there regeneration, forestation efforts? What kind of agriculture dominates? In terms of like sub-context, economic situation, climate-related conflict, displacement, disease outbreaks, we look into like in-depthness as both household and national levels, and inflation rates as well. For climate-related crises, we look into data that monitors recurring crises like drought, flood, cyclone, wildfires, and the vulnerabilities they are exposed to. And in terms of conflict and displacement, active conflict where climate shock or resource scarcity are causing displacement, or how many people are displaced, are the linkages to food, water, land stress, and disease outbreaks such as endemic health challenges, outbreaks that intersect with environmental and food system, and what makes this and such. Well, what makes the Living Planet Monitor unique is that we capture church-led responses to, like programs such as food banks, regenerative agriculture practices, and any other local projects that sort of addresses these challenges. Faith-based initiatives, church and community action. So across the globe, we've also heard from our previous speakers about how like churches are often the first responders, offering care, spiritual support in moment of crisis. And in some regions, they're only the consistent actors present there. In others, they're mobilizing advocacy program to restore land, defend water access, or care for migrant displaced families. But in all of these areas, we're especially looking for church-led and community-led responses. And we want to identify and share these stories and to document the people leading them, the resources they use, the obstacles they face. And through the Living Planet Monitor, we're offering a platform to capture, connect, and amplify these efforts, to learn from each other, and also to, learn from the data and also the stories that sort of gives a reflection of our shared humanity and hope. And time permitting, just lastly, because I know we don't have a lot of time, I'd love to like briefly walk you through the interactive flip-flop version of the Living Planet Monitor. I can share the link in the chat.
Yeah, let's go ahead and drop the link in the chat for now. We've only got about 5 minutes to close,
Yes.
unfortunately. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No worries. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you so much to Athena and Asta in terms of just being able to share around the faith initiatives that are being conducted, and also the global advocacy that you're engaged in, and also the work on the Living Planet Monitor. Yeah, thank you so much to all the panelists. It's been really been insightful. Over to you, Andrea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I wish we had more time to hear all the great examples. We will drop many links in the chat and also send us follow-up so you can dig in deeper. So really thanks to all the hosts, panelists, and participants. We really deeply appreciate the time and expertise that you all shared today, and the work that each and every person, whether you presented or you're participating, are doing towards hope, justice, and transformation. We know this is one of many conversations on the unique and essential role that faith actors are playing in solutions to promote healthy people and planet, well-nourished communities and ecosystems, supporting strong and just institutions through our advocacy work. And we've been reminded today that sharing meals with the hungry is sacred work in response to a moral crisis, a situation that is the antithesis to the kingdom of God. So we will continue to have opportunities to come together in the coming years. Dr. Arif challenged us to consider a global faith compact or alliance. And we heard so many upcoming venues on food security, COP30, World Food Day, financing for development, so many places where we have opportunities to advocate, as well as the local work that we know is continuing, probably even as you leave this call. Many of you are going to continue that work. So as we close, I just want to highlight a number of the ways, the specific ways that you as an individual, your organization, your faith community can take this work forward. One is hosting a faith community-led nutrition dialogue. We heard a lot about them. We'll drop these links. Second, joining the Turn Debt into Hope campaign, spearheaded by Caritas Internationalis. Reading and sharing the call to action issued by the Prayer and Action Against Hunger Coalition with churches who are in your constituency. Reading and sharing World Council of Churches really hot off the presses report on land and water, as well as consider joining one of the many advocacy events coming up. I want to particularly highlight a hybrid Rome-based series of events that are still in planning around the CFS conference the week of October 20th, which will be highlighting faith community-led solutions. So we're going to just put one more poll up in the minute, just to invite you to share what actions you think you might take before I hand over to Craig just to send us off in a blessing. So let's drop the Menti. There we go. Thank you. Just quickly highlighted a number of actions. There. Great. Great to see someone's going to host a nutrition dialogue. Anyone else? Great. Call to action for churches. Ooh, good. People joining the October meeting will be great. As I said, we'll be sure to follow up with links and ways to engage with all of this. I'm going to give 30 more seconds. Okay, great. And we can leave this open to continue. But so that we can end on time, I'm going to hand over to Craig to send us out from this beautiful 90 minutes together with a blessing from the Jubilee prayer.
So if you're comfortable joining me in a prayer, if that's welcome, let's close in that in a prayer. So let us go forth into the world in peace and dedicated to God's service. Let us hold fast to that which is good. Render to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, and help the needy, the hungry, and the afflicted, and honoring all people. Let us love and serve the Lord, rejoicing in the power of God's Spirit. And may God's blessing be upon us and remain with us always. Amen. Thank you all. Utpolo lubanawe. May the peace of God go with you.
Thanks all. Appreciate you being with us today. Go in peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, Fatima.
God bless you.
Thanks, Father Augustine.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you,
Raphael.
Andrea.
It's great to be with you all today.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.